Welcome to Shedding the Corporate Bitch. I'm Bernadette Boas of Bullifier Coaching, your host. And in this powerful episode, we're diving into leading from within, exploring how corporate leaders can navigate the unprecedented turbulence of AI adoption, the backlash to DEI, and social transformation significantly impacting businesses today. Our guest, Thom Dennis of Serenity and Leadership, combines his experience as a former Royal Marine officer with over 30 years in global consulting to guide us through today's most pressing leadership challenges. We'll unpack the complexities of managing AI adoption, responding to the backlash against DEI and what you should do about it, and handling the rapid shifts of hybrid work. We'll also confront the rise of quantum computing, population shifts, and climate change forces impacting today's corporate landscape in ways that cannot be ignored. Thom will emphasize today's change is likely the slowest it'll ever be. Whether you're an executive or HR leader, Thom's insights will arm you with critical tools, flexibility, resilience, and compassionate vulnerability to lead with purpose. Stay with us as we explore how you can be fully present, adaptable, and ready to aspire in an era defined by relentless transformation.
Welcome to Shedding the Corporate Bitch, the podcast that transforms today's managers into tomorrow's powerhouse leaders. Your host, Bernadette Boas, executive coach and author, brings you into a world where the corporate grind meets personal growth and success in each and every episode. With more than 25 years in corporate trenches, Bernadette's own journey from being dismissed as a tyrant boss to becoming a sought-after leadership coach and speaker illustrates the very essence of transformation that she now inspires in others with her tips, strategies, and stories. So, if you're ready to shed the bitches of fear and insecurity, ditch the imposter syndrome, and step into the role of the powerhouse leader you were born to be, this podcast is for you. Let's do this.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you. It's good to be with you, Bernadette.
It's good to have you, especially around this conversation. We are living through some turbulent times. And part of our discussion is also going to be about the fact that it's probably the slowest time, believe it or not, that we're going to have, because it's just going to get more fast and turbulent. And we're going to get into the whole DEI space and the backlash that's been coming out and about. We're going to touch on AI and even some social change conversations. But before we do, I always like our viewers and listeners to get an idea of the person that we're talking to, where they're from, what their passions are. So can you share with us a little bit about Thom?
Yes. All right. Well, I'll try and stay off my CV. My father was an engineer, and so I was brought up in that sort of environment. I worked in the shop floor when I was very young, became a lifeguard, which was great fun. And then flying college, industry, and then joined the Royal Marines. And so I spent a long time traveling around and learning about leadership and learning about the military and world affairs, really, which is something that I've been sort of very interested in and still am. Came out after the first Gulf War, and then since then I've been doing the work that I do. I have been married. I'm not now, and I've got 2 kids. My daughter's just had her second boy. Very exciting.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. And my son, he's in Australia with his wife and 4 children. So I'm a grandfather of 6.
Beautiful. And you're in England, correct?
I am in England, although, I say although, I mean, I was born in England, although my roots are in France. My parents were, my mother was French and my father was half French. But I lived in the US for 6 years, traveled around a lot. So I have a sense of various aspects, parts of the US. Very, very fond of the US, and I go back as often as I can.
Well, yeah. Lovely. Well, again, congratulations on the grandbabies. That's fabulous. Well, speaking of grandbabies, it's actually an interesting segue into our conversation, because the grandbabies of the world are going to be taking on, and we're leaving these trying times, and hopefully they get better. But to the point of our discussion too, they're also going to get faster. So you do talk about the fact that this is the slowest time that we're going to be experiencing. Can you help us understand that? Like, what do you mean by that? And where is it coming from? What are the factors that is driving that?
Well, when I say the slowest, what I really mean is the pace of change that we are experiencing today is not going to slow down. It's going to get faster. And so, it amuses me a little bit, when I speak to a CEO of an organization and they say, oh, yeah, we'd really want to work with you, but we're just going through a period of change. So give me a call in 6 months when we'll be through this, and then I'd love to talk to you. And it's like, are you just getting rid of me, or do you actually believe what you're saying? Because it's not going to slow down. And so what we have to do, and that's hence the title, Leading from Within, we have to find a new way of leading, which isn't based on the old models, which had sort of certainty and security and very linear, polar thinking. All of that's got to go out the window. So where's it coming from? Well, I think there's a whole series of things that are challenging, particularly leaders, but all of us really. We had the pandemic. And the pandemic's not over, in the sense that many people are suffering from long COVID. Mm-hmm. Many more people still have a sense of anxiety in them. Mm-hmm. And that drives a lot of activity, which mostly is very negative.
Right. Agreed.
So fear is a real underlying aspect in an awful lot of people's lives. So resourcing ourselves is another aspect, if you like, of trying to go forward. Then you've got climate change, and we may argue about who caused climate change, but it's difficult to argue that there isn't any climate change. Things are changing, and because the Earth is such a complex system, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen and when. But one of the things that we can see that it's doing is causing massive population movement, and combine that with all the wars that are going on, which are also causing massive population movement.
Right.
And you come up with that sort of dynamic, which is real, against a sort of a political scene, a social scene, which says, not in my backyard. You're not coming into my country. So people, at a time, as I see it, when we need community, we need people joining together to tackle problems which are much bigger than us as units. Everybody's trying to splinter apart, and that's not going to work.
Right.
It's leading to more and more disaffection and tension and fear, which again is speeding up.
Going back to these other societal things that are happening, the movement of people due to war, the movement of people due to the climate change, what is that doing to businesses? What do all those factors have, and what do leaders need to do today in order to adapt?
I had the privilege of rafting down the Grand Canyon some years ago, which was an amazing, amazing experience. So humbling to be in this place where you can see millions of years of development in the rocks as you just go past. But when we came to rapids, we would get out and go and look at the rapid, and because the flow of the water changes from day to day, you never know quite how it's going to be. So you try and plot a route through the rocks. You get back in your raft and off you go. You're in there, you really are at the mercy of the water. And as you start to go in there, there's no turning back. You can't sort of row backwards. You're in there. You get to the stage where you're just making really minor alterations or interferences, if you like, in your steering as you go through these things. And then you're working with the water. And that, in a sense, is a metaphor for me for leading from within, because we can't fight the changes that are coming. We really can't. And so what we have to do is to create a space of peace within us where we access our inner wisdom. I put my hand on my heart. I mean, I could put it on my gut. You know, the heart and the gut are the things that inform us when our brain is full of rubbish. You know, our brains tend to be full of rubbish most of the time, and they're the ones. It's the one that gives all the admonitions and the you're terrible and you're ugly and you're doing badly and all those tapes that play in your head. Whereas the heart, if you're at peace, you can hear, and it's a still voice that comes out that says, just a touch right there, just a little bit left there, and then you flow through the rocks and you come out the other side. So that's why my organization is called Serenity in Leadership, because I think you have to be able to create a place of serenity in yourself where you can hear your inner guidance. And actually, as a leader, if you have a sense of serenity about you, people will gather towards you because it's such a scary place.
Right.
And so if a leader can say to their people, look, I don't know how this is all going to come out, all right? But be with me, stick with me, and we will work this out together.
I'll navigate you through the rough waters and find the path.
More so, I would say we'll navigate the waters. So it's not like, oh, I'm the leader, I've got full responsibility for this. I think that today's leadership is much more, it's not about consensus, but it is about listening to all the wisdom that you can gather. You know, so often in an organization, you get the CEO who says, oh, that something's going really wrong. You know, we've got to do this. We've got to change that. And all the people on the shop floor are saying, hey, come talk to us. We know what's going wrong. We know how to put it right. And all the leaders are saying, oh, never mind that. We've got to do this. It's like, no, let's listen. Let's respect our people.
I love that. I love that. It's so true. If they would actually come down and meet people where they are to understand that they're the ones doing the work, and therefore they could help them in so much more powerful ways than they give them credit for.
Absolutely.
I love that. All right. So we understand that now, and we understand where leading from within comes from. How is AI? I mean, we all know what a massive, world change this is. And it's come on so fast and so strong, and everyone's trying to figure it out. What do leaders need to do to at least get a grasp on it within the four walls of their organization?
Well, it depends how far they've gone down the road already, I suppose. For those that are sort of holding back or they don't know quite what to do, I'd say to them, play with it, have fun. But do it for your personal stuff. Work out your shopping list. Work out what your chores are that you've got to do in the house. Work out, give it some parameters and let it help you choose where you're going to go on holiday next year. There's so many things that one can do with it. Then I think it's quite fun, actually. You know, the great skill around AI right now is prompts. Prompt engineers are the exciting. Everyone thought it was going to be programming, but it's not programming because AI does all the programming for you now. So pretty scary for all the people who said, right, that's going to be my career because I can really make money doing this. No, don't work like that anymore. So exploring, you can ask AI, how can I write a really good prompt that will help me with this problem? And it'll give you some ideas on the prompt. And then you put the prompt in and it'll give you the response. It is an extraordinary facility
Right.
And some organizations obviously have got very specialized AI, sifting CVs and doing legal research. And of course, in medicine, there are truly amazing things going on. The fundamental, though, is don't ignore it. It is here. It is here to stay. And it is developing at a breakneck speed. So get on the boat or get on the bus or whatever the metaphor is you want and play. Don't be scared of it, but at the same time, don't believe everything it tells you.
That is key, because you can open up any type of online newsletter and whatnot, and you'll see all the lawsuits and legal issues and implications that AI is also creating. And therefore, companies definitely need to be paying attention to the accuracy and the ethic issues around it. Absolutely. Do you use it? Because I use it. I was just using it for the last hour and a half in the work that I was doing this morning.
I do use it a lot. Some things that that it's not really very good to criticize it, particularly because it's developing and changing so much. Some things, really, if you use Word and use their dictation, then forget it. Certainly for me, with my English accent, maybe it works better with an American accent, but
no,
it's dreadful. And I use Otter to record podcasts and Zoom meetings and that. And often I read the transcript and I think, what on earth was I saying? I've got to go back to the audio to say, oh yeah, right. Okay. Because it just, it's a graphic example of how it just makes up things.
Right.
But the technology is truly amazing that it can do what it does.
Right.
But we're still quite a long way from where it actually can be reliable. And
I love the tip that you provided for businesses. Play with it. Start slow. Use it personally. I have not done that yet, but even put it out to a few of your people to kind of play around, and playing with prompts is a blast. I love sitting here and just getting really creative with my prompts to see what the results are. But I love that because that would ease a leader in to getting out of that fear factor and kind of just seeing what it can lend itself to improving the business, because there's a great application of it.
Well, yes. And of course, each business is unique. Their challenges are unique. I think one of the dangers, and we'll probably talk a bit more about DEI, but, they say that IBM deals with 1 million CVs a year. So clearly they need some help, unless they're going to employ, and people aren't going to do that. So, but it's where are the criteria, and what is it that you're going to miss by having an AI do the sifting? Because you will miss some things, and maybe that's just how it is. That's the cost of it. But I think there's a sadness in there, because we lose our humanity.
Except for the fact that I just heard a news brief yesterday that AI chatbots are being developed with such human emotion to where a young boy just committed suicide because he had this relationship with what he thought was a real person. And so I do think the AI most of us are using, especially from a business application perspective, probably still is very robotic and doesn't have that human emotional touch, but it's coming.
It really is coming, Bernadette. And I mean, British Telecom, one of the biggest telecoms businesses in this country, announced a while back they're laying off 10,000 people and replacing them with AI, particularly around customer interface, because for the very reason you're saying, the AI can be set up in such a way that it shows more empathy in dealing with people than without. The difficulty is, I don't know what it's like for you, but when I get sort of chatting with a bot, which seems to happen far too frequently.
Yes.
It gets me so irritated so quickly, because you hit up against their limitations. Now, over a period of time, it is going to improve. But at the moment, there are far too many decisions being made by machines to the detriment of actually the customer.
Absolutely.
And, there's an old comedy skit from some years ago in this country where, the guy goes in to the bank manager, assistant, and he sits across the table and the chap says, well, what do you want? He says, well, I'd like to borrow $1,000. So the guy types in $1,000 and that. And then he turns to the chap and says, the computer says no. So he says, well, how about £500? Well, can I borrow $500? The computer says no. And that's it. And it's like, there's so many things. It's like insurance companies. Can you get insurance on something? No. Can I get an explanation? No. The computer said no.
Right.
We're in a kind of dystopia in that sense.
Yes.
So we can make it empathize, but we don't have the underpinning thinking that addresses us as humans with needs.
What recommendations do you give leaders to balance that out? Yes, there's places you can automate that don't require a human emotional connection, but then there's other places where it's important for you to still have that service touch.
Wow. Well, that's a big question in a sense. And I suppose the challenge is, how much of a human do you want to be? Because one of the aspects of AI is that there are going to be people who make a ton of money using AI.
Right.
Now, that's great for those that make the money, if that's what you want. But it also creates a whole greater division. The pandemic has created huge divisions in society. And AI is doing it more. It's amplifying it. So there's the haves and the have-nots. And so if you're the CEO of an organization and you want to implement AI, more power to you. I understand completely, and I can see the potential benefits. And at the same time, what does that mean to your people? They're saying now, for instance, in law firms, that an awful lot of the drudgery of research in looking for precedents and stuff like that can be done by AI. Incredibly efficient, very fast, brilliant. But what happens to all the people who are interns and young aspiring lawyers who are not going to have that experience?
Right.
So where are the future lawyers going to come from, and what is their route of experience? What is it going to be? And how many of those interns actually are not going to be taken on at all now because AI is going to be doing that job? So I think one of the really important sort of questions around this is, what are the unintended consequences of whatever it is that you're thinking of doing or implementing? Because believe me, there will be unintended consequenses. And
so that's a great question for a leader to ask, right? That's a great question for a leader to ask with their leadership team, his or her leadership team. What are the unintended consequences based on the decisions we're making?
I can tell you, as a facilitator, where I facilitate offsites of C-suite teams all the time, that's a question they hate.
They don't want to think about it.
Yeah, don't bother me with that. Right. I know where we're going. And it's like, be careful.
There's enough divisiveness in the world right now. We need to be careful that we're not just ripping out the fabric of humanity with some of the decisions that we're making. And sadly, you can look around and just find it in too many places at the moment. So let's move on to DEI, because that's an area that's getting totally ripped apart as well. So when you say the backlash of DEI, help us understand that.
Well, with George Floyd, and I don't know, you can start at any point if you like, but I remember when he was murdered, a number of companies phoned me and said, "Oh, look, we need to do some work around Black Lives Matter." So they're phoning up and saying, "Look, Black Lives Matter, come and run a thing on that." And I'm saying, "Yeah, but in what context? What are you actually trying to do here? Are you trying to do the annual vaccination of, in this case, Black Lives Matter, or integrating having racial justice or something?" These are such deeply held biases, conditioning that we all have. We all have. Through our conditioning, we have been brought up in particular ways. And you're not going to do it in an hour seminar. You're not going to do it in a week's seminar. This is something that is a developmental process. And the only real way to as I see it, to get on that bus properly is to say, right, we're gonna change the culture in this organization, and we're going to work with people, and we're going to look at what is it that makes people react negatively to someone else. And this is difficult work. So you've got some companies going on to the backlash that are really working with this. They're keeping going. In the UK, the last government decided that diversity was a waste of time, it was a waste of money, a waste of effort, and so they told people to stop spending money on it in the National Health Service, for instance, and in the civil service. And it's like there's a ton of companies that have set up and said, call me, I can make your organization diverse and happy and blah blah blah. Of course they can't. And the snake oil salesman of today, in a sense. But there is good work that can be done. But rather like the Me Too movement, after that came out, there was this huge pushback, and it's got larger and larger, to the extent now that there's less women, certainly in the Fortune 500, but certainly in the UK equivalent, of women on boards. So there's been a retrenchment, and it's some of the dying throes of an old system saying, I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep things the way that I want them because it works for me.
Right.
So this is deeply vested interest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And forgive me, but this is the dysfunctional masculine that has ruled for many, many, many years and has been challenged by a very powerful but actually quite dysfunctional feminine that now says, I can do everything. So the masculine says, well, if you can do everything, where do I sit in all this? No, ma'am, go away. So there's the gender, there's the race, there's disabilities, there's neurodivergence, all these aspects, which, coming back to sort of leading from within, these are huge challenges for leaders today.
Right.
Because
do you find that a company that just rips it out without any really intentional thought and consideration, they rip out their DEI, are they finding backlash in not only how their people are responding to it, but more so how their culture is changing?
Well, when you look at a pendulum, it swings, and it swings quite slowly. So the reactions and the reactions to the reactions are taking a while. But you only have to look at an organization like Patagonia, which is, it's for me is one of the greatest success stories in the corporate world. They don't follow convention. All they do is follow their passion. And it just works so beautifully. It works so beautifully. So in an organization where, a good example at the moment is the companies that are saying to their workforce, right, you come back 5 days a week. We want you in the office. Okay. Where a lot of people found that during the pandemic, not everybody, When you're sitting with 3 children in the same room and you're sitting on the end of a bed trying to do your work, it ain't easy. But for an awful lot of people, working from home was a huge benefit, not least because they didn't have to commute into work. So, but the other side of that is, I'm the manager. I need to control what's going on. And if they're at home, then they're not doing their work. That is the fundamental mistrust assumption. Whereas actually somebody's saying, yeah, I'm not working 9 to 5. I've got other things I need to do in the household, but I'll work from 6 till in the evening until, and I'll get my, and what's more, I'll be more effective, more efficient, and all the rest of it. So, so that's a backlash. We need you back in the office, but none of these things are right or wrong, black or white, because actually there are interchanges that take place in the office, which you need to have. You get somebody who comes out of university during the pandemic, joins an organization. He's never been into the office. Not even yet has he ever been into the office. So he's losing, or she, all the social interactions and also learnings that go on in the office. Yes. So you need a bit of both. You need this sense of balance of how do we get the best out of the situation? How do we get the best out of the people? And sometimes that, well, I think that each company will find its own balance. But when you get the autocratic person, which I referred to right at the beginning, who says, no, we need them all in the office all the time. Right. That is a control mechanism. It's not one that's being done for the best things in the business.
Well, and I like what you said about the fact that not only control, but it's not trust. It's distrusting of their own people, that they have to put the hammer down and be, it's my way or no way. That in itself is a huge issue and a huge implication, not only to the health of the individual, of the employees, and the productivity and effectiveness and efficiency, not only to the business, but also to that leader, because sooner or later, that type of leader is not going to succeed.
Well, you see, historically, you go back to Jack Welch and all that style. A lot of people still go to his books and quote him and that. So there are still people who hold up that kind of leadership as the way forward. Sure. It has died.
Sure.
If people haven't heard that, it has died.
So let it die.
But there are still people trying to resuscitate the body because they see that great success came out of that. But if you look at a lot of the really amazing, powerful leaders who led like that, when they retired or died or whatever, there was no one to take over. Mm-hmm. And it left a vacuum, which was actually very, very damaging for those organizations.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fabulous, but I want to be sure, we've talked a lot about AI, we talked about DEI, we've talked about change. What would one thing be, based on everything that we talked about, based on leading from within, that you would leave with our corporate leaders that are listening and watching?
I once had to go and visit an important, grand CEO of a very large organization. And we had 15 minutes with him. And what really struck me as we walked into this grand office and walked up to his desk, and there were 2 chairs there, and we sat down, his desk was clear. There was no computer. There was, well, it was closed, And he said, right, gentlemen, what can I do for you? And for those 15 minutes, he had our undivided attention. We had his
undivided.
Well, it was a two-way thing, but and at the end of that, the time was up, and it was up. He held his boundary, finish, out the door. So what I take from that is the greatest gift that you can give to another human being is your full presence.
Love that. Agreed. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Thom. This has been absolutely fabulous. And I want to make sure everyone knows. Be sure to go to serenityandleadership.com, learn all about Thom and the work that they do and the services that they provide. At the same time, be sure to follow him on LinkedIn. You can simply go to Thom Dennis, and that's THOM, Thom Dennis, and follow him on LinkedIn. Thom, thank you so much for this. It's been fabulous.
Bernadette, thank you. It's been lovely speaking with you. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thom Dennis of Serenity and Leadership is a powerhouse. What a hard discussion, kind of one that really should get us all concerned, shake us in the boots, and very focused on wanting to make changes within our organizations, whether that is at a team level or the business as a whole. Thom really talked about the fact that change is speeding up. When he said that right now, what we're all going through and what we have been going through for the last several years, it has been slow compared to what it's going to be like when we go forward. I kind of started gasping for air. However, that's a reality we all need to consider, especially as leaders. We need to be flexible, adaptable. We need to be present with our people to understand just what they're going through and what the business is going through, so then we can all walk through it very successfully. Thom also mentioned that leadership is moving to the heart. It's getting away from the old bureaucracy and the old ways of doing things that were all, it's my way or no way, and really moving more toward leading with the heart, being empathetic, meeting our people where they are, walking in their shoes, wanting to bring them along as opposed to just make sure that they're doing what they're doing. Then he went on to discuss key things like AI and climate change, and then even DEI and what needs to happen there, as opposed to ripping it out. Leaders have to be intentional and purposeful and thoughtful around how do we integrate it into our culture so we don't have to have a standalone DEI initiative or platform. And he even challenged leaders to think about, do you care? Do you even care to lead from the heart? Do you care that your employees are people and that it's not just about getting the work done, but it's about what is best and how to get the best out of the people that are doing the work that's making you successful? It was eye-opening. What did you take away? What were your thoughts? What are your views? What are your challenges to our discussion today? Follow me on LinkedIn, just simply at Bernadette Boas, and send me a DM and let me know what your views or opinions or ideas are in regards to what we discussed today on Checking the Corporate Bitch. At the same time, should you or someone on your team be struggling and want to really understand how can you take control of the direction of your organization through all of these trying times, then be sure to reach out and let's have a conversation about it. Go to coachmebernadette.com/discovery call and let me give you some tips and strategies and ideas for how you can be making an impact while at the same time really supporting your team and your organization through any type of change. I'll look forward to having you for another episode of Shedding the Corporate Bitch. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Shedding the Corporate Bitch. Every journey taken together is another step towards unleashing the powerhouse leader within you. Don't miss any of our weekly episodes. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you love to listen. And for those who thrive on visual content, catch us on our Shedding the Bitch YouTube channel. Want to dive deeper with Bernadette on becoming a powerhouse leader? Visit balloffirecoaching.com to learn more about how she helps professionals, HR executives, and team leaders elevate overall team performance. You've been listening to Shedding the Corporate Bitch with Bernadette Boas.